Hello, hello, and welcome to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya. If you are a second generationer, child of immigrants, a diaspora leader, professional change maker, however you identify, this space is for you. This podcast is more than just storytelling. It's about strategy, identity, leadership, communities, finding yourself in this beautiful diasporic journey we're all going to. We'll talk about everything from navigating the workforce as a diaspora professional to the role that you can play in making an impact from where you are, locally or around the world. We'll talk about the realities and joys of being a second generationer, some of the challenges, some of the delights, but most importantly, we're going to remind you that you are powerful, that you belong, and that your job here is to create the spaces you wish existed. Hey everyone, welcome back to That Second Gen Life. I'm your host, Samhar Araya, and you're joining us for part 2 of our 3-part deep dive into diaspora impact. Last episode, we focused on social impact, the stories, the culture, and the community care that keep us grounded. Today, we're moving into a different kind of power, economic impact. And this is about money, but more importantly, how we as diasporas use our money, our wealth, our treasures to build, invest, and sustain our communities, both here and abroad. I'm going to walk you through 3 really powerful examples of how diasporas are creating wealth and change, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. And when I say wealth, I'm talking about the way we invest our treasures, our monies, our resources, the way we mobilize our efforts to provide support and lasting economic impact to communities here and there. Okay, so let's talk about diasporas in the global economy. Remittances, of course, are the money that immigrant and diaspora communities send to their ancestral homelands to support their families, their loved ones, their communities. We send money every month to help them cover the costs, maybe be able to pay for the rent, the school tuition, the housing, the uniforms, all these different things that remittances tend to go towards. It could also be remittances that go towards investments as well, to help an entrepreneur start a business, to help a family launch a brick and mortar store. But essentially what diasporas do is we invest, we fund, we support the building of economies from where we are. This means schools, it means investing in real estate, launching startups, and helping families wherever they may be in their journey. It's also true for the entire world. The World Bank estimates there's about $647 billion that goes around the world in remittances in 2022. And again, that's more than all this foreign aid we're talking about. So as we look at the role of diasporas in development, I feel like this is the kind of example and data point that should remind everyone how diasporas not only transform economies, but respond to the calls and the needs of communities more than the international community as a whole. It is a powerful example of what we do with what we have. Now imagine what our economic impact looks like when we focus on putting it towards particular areas of investment, of opportunity. When we talk about economic impact, it is about directing capital, knowledge, and opportunity in ways that uplift our communities both here and there. We are responders, investors, and supporters of different economic schemes. The first one being humanitarian response and the role of diasporas in responding to crises. In addition to humanitarian response, there's also diaspora investment schemes, and there's diaspora philanthropy, another major subset of economic impact that honestly goes unnoticed in most cases because diasporas, we don't tend to capture our philanthropic giving and our efforts. Maybe if we did, it would be even more telling than the remittance data point. But let me start with humanitarian impact for you. So on the humanitarian front, this is part of my career, like working in conflict resolution and humanitarian affairs and development. I have seen firsthand the role of diasporas in development. This is essentially the work that I do now at the Diaspora Academy, is supporting diasporas who want to make impact. There's a lot of criticisms of the way humanitarian needs are explained. We talk about this phrase of poverty porn and the way that brown and black faces are put in people's eyes and television screens and ads to generate sympathy and outpouring of giving. That isn't the humanitarian realm that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the reality of diaspora communities who understand when a crisis erupts, that they are needed before, during, and after the international community. Diasporas are often the first to respond to a crisis because they're either directly affected by it, or they know that it's coming, or they've been told that it's coming before the international community responds. And so what you have is a response effort that includes the transfer of monies, but also pathways to provide material support and resources. That means delivery of food, delivery of medical supplies. That even means training and helping humanitarian responders on the ground do their work better. But one really great example of this that I love is an organization that I work quite closely with, and I was just on a panel with them a couple weeks ago. It's called Shabaka, and Shabaka is based in the UK, but they work globally. Shabaka focuses on mobilizing diaspora skills, talent, and resources to support humanitarian and development efforts in Africa and the Caribbean. It's founded by a very good friend of mine, Bashair Ahmed. She's a PhD in humanitarian affairs, Sudanese Brit, just a really brilliant person. But she understood that we needed to establish the role of diasporas in humanitarian response by forming an organization and advocating for better policies that allow diasporas to do more effective humanitarian response, because we're going to do it either way. But in the economic system, diaspora humanitarian efforts go largely unnoticed, and Shabaka is vital in helping amplify this. What makes them unique is that Shabaka is not only focusing on the role of diasporas as development actors, but they're doing the training, they're doing the networking, and they're doing the advocacy. Even though they're based in the UK, they're one of the best examples that I've seen over the last 10 years of how diasporas in humanitarian response engage, how they act, how they make impact, and also what they need from where they are in terms of advocating for their organizational and community-based needs. So check out Shabaka if you can, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Another part of economic impact that I think we don't think about, but you may be doing this or you may be interested in this, is through diaspora investment schemes. A lot of governments have created opportunities for diasporas to invest in their homeland. And there are diasporas, again, I'm in the States, so I'm going to talk about diasporas based here. There's a lot of diasporas who organize to become investors in schemes that help develop the economy of their ancestral homeland. Maybe to invest in real estate or to create an angels network of VC funders, a VC organization of some sort. This exists, but I don't think we capture it enough. And I'm not limiting it to just the African diaspora. As a member of the African diaspora, I'm saying this across the different diasporas. We see so many examples of this, whether it's the Irish, the Italians, the Armenians, the Haitians, they just exist across. The experience of being a diaspora is to also think of how we move from relief to development and how we drive investments for long-term transformational change. And one really great organization that does this is an organization I've watched and engaged with over many years. Haven't worked with them directly, but that's really more because it's not exactly my lane. But for investment, I always think of Homestrings. And Homestrings is a platform created specifically for diaspora investors. And it connects diasporas with business and social impact projects across different emerging markets mostly. And for Homestrings, the idea is that the diaspora wealth, it's emotional, it's strategic, it's transformative, and they want to create opportunities for diasporas to invest. So that'll be like anything on energy, healthcare, agriculture, housing, real estate. The financing schemes that exist in the global economy, there are multiple entry points for diasporas to engage, but someone has to be making those links. And I do see Homestrings as the pioneer and the forefront of all that. So now we get to one of my most favorite pillars within economic impact, and that's diaspora philanthropy. I love conversations around diaspora philanthropy because I don't think we have enough of them. And I don't think the diasporas understand just how philanthropic we really are. And when I say philanthropic, I don't mean high net worth people giving money and getting recognition and getting a building named after them. To be in the diaspora is to be philanthropic. Do you know what I mean? Like when you look at the root word of philanthropy, it's time, talent, and treasure. And if you follow me, you know that is all I say, how you use your time, talent, and treasure for good. And it's because philanthropy is really part and parcel of the diasporic experience. So I want us to think more critically about where philanthropy exists in our world and in our day-to-day lives, and why we don't elevate it or capture it enough. Now, I know that philanthropy is ultimately a selfless act to help others in need, and I understand that. I also understand that we do a lot of informal giving that goes unrecorded, that goes through informal channels, and it should stay that way because it's community-based. It's so important that we maintain our cultural values when we raise money to help a family, or we raise money for a funeral, or we raise money to build a school back home, or we send money to an NGO back home, we fundraise, we build a GoFundMe, we do all these things. I think it's critical that we keep our values intact when we do those things. But being in the diaspora, we are a part of financial systems that have no recollection or capture of our actual impact. And so when we ask to be recognized, we don't have any proof. There's nothing on the scoreboard. There's nothing recorded. And that's why we only talk about remittances, because no one is capturing the giving that they do. It's informal. It's house to house. It's a wad of cash that you put in your suitcase and you give out when you're in your homeland. But truthfully, if diasporas were to actually start capturing more strategically the kind of giving they do, it would tip the scales of the entire philanthropic market. It would change the game, and it would force the international community to reconsider how it does business in the philanthropic world. And so when I think of diaspora philanthropy, I'm thinking of all the giving that we do that goes unrecorded in our taxes. When you do a charitable deduction, a charitable donation, that's philanthropy, that's giving. And a lot of us, we don't establish ourselves as nonprofit organizations, but even if we do, even if we have a diaspora nonprofit organization that we're giving to, that we write a check for, it doesn't get reported in our taxes. And this is especially true for diasporas from the global south. I will also just share that, having worked in philanthropy at UNICEF and leading the diaspora philanthropy work, what we saw was a huge discrepancy in the level of reporting from diasporas that were from the West, Western Europe or across Europe, versus Africa and the Caribbean versus Asia. And it meant that opportunities and entry points to communities looked different, because for the African diaspora, they were the most underreported and least captured philanthropic group. And that meant that I didn't have a lot of data to show why we needed to engage with the African diasporas, because I didn't have the sort of proof of concept. But I knew enough, and I made the case, and I ended up doing the work. But not having our giving captured in any formal way or in any transparent way makes it really hard to innovate and grow. And maybe we don't need that, but I think as the world looks to finding new ways to operate in this global economy, especially now as we're watching what's happening in this administration and the policy choices that are being made that are having direct impact on development, on philanthropy, and on investments and the markets, this is the time that diasporas can make their case and show that why we are doing the most impactful form of giving. But anyway, let me get to this group, because I really love this organization. I know I say that about every group I've mentioned so far, but it's true. These are really organizations I love, admire, value, and always think about how I can elevate them. Now, there's an organization in Dearborn, Michigan called the Center for Arab American Philanthropy, or CAP. And I love CAP because it does everything. CAP is the only national Arab American community foundation in the U.S., and I think it's one of the only diaspora philanthropy organizations in the U.S. I could be wrong. There could be more. I know there's a lot of organizations that engage in diaspora philanthropy, but CAP is so inspiring to me because it channels Arab American giving into really strategic community-led philanthropy. And they support all kinds of causes. Like, it's not just something about Dearborn or something about a particular country, but it's everything from like education and arts to humanitarian relief to helping build the capacity of the Arab American community to give, to engage in philanthropy. So they mobilize funds from the Arab American community, they build capacity for Arab American donors to become more effective, and they introduce new philanthropic pathways of giving, like donor advised funds and endowment scholarships. These are things that I think are hallmarks of diaspora giving. We're always thinking about how to give for the next generation, how to honor our elders and our ancestors, how to preserve legacy of change makers in the community. And I think CAP does an incredible job at institutionalizing that giving, but also showcasing it as a valued hallmark and pillar of the Arab American community. So CAP, look into it. I want to see more CAPs for different diaspora communities. I definitely want to see it for the African diaspora community. And again, the thing that makes CAP so special is that they're focused strictly on being an effective donor, on philanthropy. They don't talk about investments. They don't talk about creating another social project. They're looking at the space of philanthropy and how to cultivate more Arab American giving, more effective Arab American philanthropy, and capturing it. Okay, so these three orgs are just the top examples I could find that are at the tip of my tongue, now. But there's so many organizations, and they show us really what diaspora economic power really looks like beyond the remittances. It's not charity. It's investment. It's entrepreneurship. It's transformative humanitarian relief. It's long-term financial strategies. It's lifelong investments as a donor. And I also, lastly, would just also remind everyone, I don't even think that diasporas see themselves as donors per se. I do believe that diasporas always see themselves as investors and investors in long-term outcomes. So when we give to an emergency, we are already ready to talk about how we move from emergency to development. We don't stay in the emergency space or the humanitarian space. Unless you're a group like Shabaka that is dedicated to it, or unless you're a group like CAP that is dedicated to philanthropy, by and large, diasporas are investors. And that's why this economic impact pillar is so important to understand, that it is beyond the giving of monies or cash or remittances, right? Our job is to showcase all of these different ways, I think, more strategically, more effectively. I don't see the harm in making ourselves known. I think it also shows our power and our influence. And it also shows the creativity and ingenuity of diaspora communities from where we are. So let me know what you think. What does economic impact mean to you? Notice I did not mention small businesses and entrepreneurs, although I could have. I should have said that at the top, because diaspora economic impact includes businesses and entrepreneurs that drive economies from where we are. But I tend to think of this like economic impact from the most common areas we exist. Also, lastly, there's one more example of diaspora economic impact that I can't forget to include today. And that is the diaspora economic impact of small business owners and entrepreneurs, and where we're innovative in that space as mom and pop shops, as the restaurants, as the retail owners, as the entrepreneurs who are trying to close a gap and offer a new product or service. We know that in the United States, immigrant-owned businesses fuel so many local economies across the country. If you check with a mayor or a municipality or a city or town anywhere in the US, they will point to the fact that a lot of jobs are created by immigrant-owned businesses, and that in some cases, cities and towns are transformed because of immigrant entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so this is also important to remember. It goes without saying that we are also major drivers of our local economies in the ways we present our businesses. So I want to hear from you. How are you using your economic power? And how do these examples of economic impact resonate with you? Do you see yourself in any of these pillars? And what would you see as a form of economic impact that maybe I didn't mention? I love it. For the next episode, we'll close out this 3-part series with a focus on diaspora civic impact and how diasporas show up in advocacy, policy, and movement building. The time is so right for this conversation, and as you probably know, with me, it's a lifelong mission of mine to focus on diaspora civic impact. I can't tell you how many examples I have for you, but I'll try to keep it brief and always invite you to come back to me if you want to go deeper. So sit tight, that episode is coming soon, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for sitting with me and all your time and all your support, and I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow That Second Gen Life with Samhar on your favorite listening platform.